Today, on behalf of DeviantArt, we are hosting a Protect Your Art panel for Lightbox. I want to begin by giving everyone a chance to introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into it. My name is Jessica Foti. I am known as Silas A online, and I am a fantasy digital artist who creates and live streams with the intent of encouraging others to follow the path of passion and creativity. Jonas?
I'm Jonas Jödicke, also known as JoJo's Art online. And I'm a digital fantasy artist. I love to portray majestic animals and also the interplay of yin and yang. So lots of my artworks have this play between like a dark and a light animal. And my paintings are purchased all around the globe. I've worked with really cool companies like Huawei, Adobe, Ravensburgers for puzzles. And yeah, I'm super happy to be here on this panel.
And Lauren?
Hi, my name is Lauren. I am the Laurenverse on DeviantArt. In November, I will have worked here at DeviantArt for 12 years. I do product. What does that mean? If you're my mom, that means I don't know what she does, but if you're in tech or extremely online, that just means I listen to the community, I hear ideas, and then I just help shepherd them from start to finish. So wireframing, managing designers, developers, through to quality assurance and the data gathering. So I touch a little bit of all that, and I have, my heart is out there for products such as DeviantArt Protect, other moderation notifications, and just anything that helps people.
Thanks for being here, Lauren. And Stephen.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Stephen Silver. I'm an animation character designer, best known for designing the properties such as Kim Possible and Danny Phantom, and many more along the way. And also I'm an art educator. I have my own online school, Silver Drawing Academy, because my true passion is teaching and sharing as much knowledge to artists really as possible, as young artists especially are moving into this world of art.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited to get to know all of you today through the panel and hear some insight from you about, what we can do to stay safe with sharing our work online. On today's Protect Your Art panel, we're going to be discussing how to protect your art. And this is a topic that raises a lot of questions among the art community. Should we share art online? What if our art gets stolen? What can we do to prevent our artwork from being stolen? And these sorts of questions leave artists feeling kind of apprehensive about sharing their work. And there are a lot of opportunities that can emerge from sharing your work online. So I think now more than ever, it's really important that we answer these questions and we relieve some of these common worries that usually stop artists from sharing entirely. So for me personally, I've always used watermarks and uploaded lower quality artwork in my public social spaces, but we have a lot of established artists here on the panel today, and I kind of want to pick your brains and figure out some best practices for uploading artwork and how we can protect work that we have already uploaded.
I think one of the most important things, and you mentioned it, is keeping things low res or just small, especially if you're selling prints. An interesting thing that I've seen is artists, they want to sell artwork, their prints, or maybe they want to make a book, and they're showing just a high-res version of it. And that sort of defeats the purpose, especially if your goal is just to maybe entice people and let them know that this is a new piece of artwork. Because I've found that many people will just have the tendency just to grab it, screen grab it, and then use it for whatever purpose. And not just fans of art, but I'm also talking people who want to rip you off all the time. I had an incident where I posted an image online, and the next thing that I knew, people had taken that image and were putting it on t-shirts and everything else. And then I'm sure we'll get into that, but those are the sort of things you just got to be extremely wary of. So that's something that I definitely pay attention to.
Yeah, I think that's a super, super important thing to have low resolution images. And even if you work with the companies, like I just recently had something happen to me. I work with a company for puzzles, and I gave them my high resolution images so they can print them on the puzzles. But they shared these images with other companies that then resell these puzzles. and they put it up as the like preview thumbnail images for the products online for people to buy. And just like a month later, my puzzle, like the image that I licensed to the company, showed up on Chinese websites, and they sold the same puzzle. And they had the high resolution image from these preview images that these other companies used. And I think that's also something super important, that if you work with companies, also make sure to communicate with them and say, hey, if you upload products somewhere, also like use low resolution images wherever you display it online for people to see, so that no one can just like download it and use it for these purposes.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of times I'll see watermarked work, but it's still full resolution. And if people are interested enough in stealing it, they will find a way to remove that watermark anyway. So it's good to have both as like an extra layer of protection.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think that's also one of the most important thing to watermark your images and like put your signature on it, maybe. I usually try to do it somewhere where it's not so easy to crop it out, because if you put it somewhere in the background where there's just like one color behind it, people who know stuff about Photoshop can just really easily like paint over it or something like that. So maybe put it somewhere where it's kind of difficult to crop out, but still maybe incorporate into the artwork so that it doesn't look like ugly or destroys your image or whatever.
I wanted to mention something else that I've done in the past, which I think can be helpful for people, because even though you do put your artwork out there and you have your signature, people don't necessarily, they won't be able to track you. Like, who was an artist? Maybe the signature is not so legible, or it's just, they're not going to do the research. So just to put yourself out there, you might even sign your artwork with your website. So that becomes just almost like a tag that's in the artwork. So when someone goes, God, who's that artist? I love their artwork. They don't have to start digging and searching and try to find it. And they probably won't spend their time or energy. Maybe some people will, but if you just blatantly put it out there for them, it just makes it easier. Again, it's not going to stop theft or anything like that, but just in a way just to get people just to come back to the source.
I think more often work is reposted, and that suggestion is really great if somebody reposts your work without credit, or they are claiming it or whatever. Yeah, it's good to have something to redirect them. Yeah, really good suggestion.
Something I also do, which I think might also be a good idea, is to put a little copyright sign below your watermark, so that people know that it's really like copyrighted to you. I mean, the copyright exists just from you trading the artwork, but sometimes people still think that if they find something on the internet, they can just use it for whatever purposes. But if it says copyrighted to Jonas Jödicke, for example, then they have no excuse. It's like very visible on the artwork itself.
I think it also adds that, like, the feeling of I will get in trouble if I mess with this, because it's showing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, you know, we can be really diligent in our safe practices. We can watermark and stamp our name on everything, but there are still instances of our artwork getting stolen. We find it's being resold, re-uploaded. And in this case, I think it's a little terrifying. For most artists, it's pretty scary to have that happen, especially if it's the first time. But thankfully, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act exists, which is also known as more commonly as DMCA. And what this does is it protects digital work and makes it possible to take action against theft. So the question at the forefront of so many creative minds is, what does the process of filing a DMCA claim look like? And is it a difficult process?
I personally haven't had experience with that. I don't know if Lauren has, particularly with what she's doing, but myself, I haven't. I've always found that things that I've had to do, you know, in the past is just I've found on certain websites when I have found that my artwork was used, where it's on a Zazzle or some other t-shirt clothing line, that they have infringement sections that you can tap into and file a claim through them, and they'll do their due diligence to get it removed off of the site. I've had that. But more importantly now, what I'm advising people, especially if they live in the United States, it's pretty easy to do. If you're dealing with someone who's stealing or hasn't paid you or somewhere along the lines of that, is taking them to a small claims court where you don't need an attorney. People think, oh, I'm not going to deal with that and an attorney and all these fees. And I've actually done it twice and won both times and received my payment. And I think that's something just to consider. But this other thing that you had mentioned, I'm not familiar with it.
My experience with it is definitely on the other end. When it comes to us, I talk to the customer service representatives who are doing the due diligence, and they really are getting in there and double checking. And sometimes there can be a counter DMCA filed. But it's exactly what you said about going to the source. Sometimes people contact DeviantArt for something that they found on another website, and unfortunately our hands are tied there. So we always advise them, there's always something. You just got to find the DMCA link on that site, and they're obligated to take it down.
I've had a recent experience with that because it's actually not super recent, but in I think it was 2015, Madonna, the singer, she took one of my artworks and uploaded it to her Instagram, and it was an artwork of Alice in Wonderland, and she had her own face photoshopped into the face of Alice. I don't know if it was done by a fan or by herself or her team or whatever, but she uploaded that and didn't credit me for that. And one of my followers notified me and said, hey, Madonna posted your image. Did you give permission for this? And I didn't. So at first I considered to take legal action, but then I didn't for various reasons. But then I think last year, when the whole other art theft incidents happened, which we're gonna get into later, I found out about these DMCA takedowns that you can send. And the cool thing is that Instagram, in this case, is the service provider. So they are the platform that have these images and have the service of people being able to upload images on their profiles. So they are responsible for taking it down. So I didn't have to send a takedown notice to Madonna, but I could just send it to Instagram, and they did take it down. So they removed the image from her Instagram, and it took like, I don't know, 2-3 days maybe for that process to happen. So it's pretty easy.
I think a lot of cases when DMCA claims are filed result in the same way. Usually it seems overwhelming and like a lot, but it often sort of resolves itself. Or in a lot of cases, when people repost things, they don't even realize that they're not supposed to be sharing it. Like was mentioned, people pluck things from the internet and then they repost it and they think, oh, well, it's fine. It was on the internet, not hurting anybody. So that's good to know. And I think that takes away some of the overwhelm of having to do something like that and feeling, afraid of what's going to happen, or feeling like you have to go to court or this and that. But Jonas, I know you had a very public instance of DMCA that did escalate, and I know bits and pieces of the story, and I'm sure the audience does as well, but I would really love to hear your experience from your perspective about the issue with Aaron Carter.
So that was last year, early 2020. Aaron Carter is the younger brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. And he took one of my artworks with two lions that face each other, and he posted it on his Twitter to promote his clothing line. And again, a fan of mine notified me about it, and I tweeted at Aaron and I said, hey, I'm the artist of this image. I didn't give you permission. Can you please take it down? And he tweeted back at me, and he was like, no, I'm not gonna take it down. He swore at me. He made fun of me and said, like, I'm just gonna use it to promote my clothing line. I don't care. Like, if you want, we can meet at small claims court, but whatever. And the exchange went viral on Twitter. It actually became like one of the most top trending topics on Twitter, because so many artists were so enraged by the reaction of Aaron Carter that they retweeted it and shared it with everyone, and got super fired up about it, which was amazing to witness for me, to have this huge army of artists behind my back who were like fighting for that cause. And I think there was lots of like built up anger in the artist community, because so many of us have experienced these kinds of things before and this kind of behavior. And then especially from someone who is like a celebrity and also an artist himself, he should really know better that there is that thing called copyright. Yeah, so that kind of went viral and went around the world, and like lots of news outlets reached out to me and stuff like that. And also lots of lawyers reached out, lots of attorneys, and they said, hey, we would like to take that case on if possible. And I decided to work with one agency. They're called Pixy, which is Pixsy. And the reason I mentioned them specifically is because they have a really cool service. You can, if you work with them, they can pursue the case for you. They have lots of attorneys who work with them, and they will take a fee in the end if they win. But if they don't win the case, you don't have to pay any upfront fees or anything to them, which for me was a nice thing, because I didn't want to have to pay the lawyer and then maybe the case wouldn't have gone through or anything like that. And yeah, and now 1.5 years later, just last month, I think, the case got resolved. We decided to settle the case. So we came to an agreement outside of the court, and Aaron had to pay $12,500 for the image, for the use, which for me, my attorney wanted to sue for more than that, but I was still very happy that it got resolved and that he had to pay for it in the end, and that my right as an artist was granted. So yeah.
Did that experience change the way that you decided to share your work moving forward, or did it change the way that you perceived the internet, accepting your work?
It definitely changed my approach of how I want to share my art in the future. I want to be even more careful. I already tried to take these things into account that we've talked about before, but what it really taught me, I think the biggest lesson for me was that you should never back down as an artist. I think so many artists are the ones who kind of give in the end, especially if it's some bigger company or celebrity or someone who has influence stealing their work. They usually are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't I shouldn't say anything because I don't want to offend them or whatever. But I think the main thing that I learned is you have to fight for your rights. And there are so many people also willing to help you out to share these causes. So whenever you have something, share it on social media, make it known to the world, because maybe people will pick it up, and that will help you to get your rights in the end.
I think that's a good takeaway and a very good lesson to share to the artists out there who might be afraid to share their work because they're afraid of the same thing happening to them. So hopefully that gives them some hope.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned companies too, because not all art protection is from individuals. There's a lot of companies and agencies that try to take advantage of artists. And for artists interested in pursuing these avenues, Stephen, you definitely have some really great advice to share. And I know you also have some videos touching on these topics that I would encourage our audience to go check out as well. But what are some common mistakes that you see artists making, and how can artists avoid being taken advantage of by clients?
Unfortunately, I just wanted to share just things that I've heard where, when you're talking about just some of these bigger companies, I was told by some artists through these websites, there's websites called 99 Designs, and there's a lot of all these other sort of agencies and companies that are trying to just get artists to give them as many designs, show them everything, and then if we pick you, then you'll get the job. And there was this company that they were trying to find artists for a specific job, and they couldn't get the in-house. The artists weren't providing the artwork they needed. They were an advertising agency. So they even set up a 99 Designs sort of deal just to try to get many ideas as possible for their design that they wanted to do. And at the end, they didn't hire anyone, they didn't use anyone. And this is where some of these companies are taking advantage of the artists just constantly. I think it's just happens more than I think we know. And it's not even that it has to be a major corporation that we know of. It could be just a clothing company like what Jonas was talking about with this guy, or it could be a restaurant. It could be anything like that, where these people are just, again, just they look at artwork out there. They just think that it's free for all, that it's out there. Artists are a dime a dozen. They're never going to care. They're never going to find out, and it doesn't matter. And I think that's something that we should all just be aware of, that this really happens. And again, I just really feel the most important thing is artists as ourselves. We have to. What I find is a lot of artists, we defeat ourselves. We keep telling it we're not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. So when we keep just throwing that out there, how unworthy we are, that our work isn't that great and this artist is so much better, then we're not valuing ourselves. So how can we expect other people to value our artwork? It's just not going to happen. And I think that's one of the main things, that as you're moving into this industry and you're wanting to eventually sell your artwork and make a life and a living, because that's what we're all trying to do here. We're all just trying to make a life and a living, doing what it is that we love, putting our artwork out there. But again, the value of that is just important, having the belief in yourself. And once you start to, I think, just start to believe in yourself, then you start to really educate yourself too. I think there's some great books out there that will inform you. I think it's very important to have contracts. I think it's very important to have everything in writing whenever you're working with any new client. I don't care what. And one thing I just want to mention is, if you haven't worked with a client before and they're brand new, they just discovered you, they found you on LinkedIn, DeviantArt, just wherever you may be, ArtStation, whatever it may be, that you're getting something in writing and trying to get money up front. This is one of the biggest common mistakes that artists make, is not getting many sort of money up front. And then they're so willing to just share their artwork straight away. Hey, we just want to see a couple of variations. We're working on this project and we'd love to see your take on this. And if it goes, then something will happen. Otherwise, they just try to bait you somehow into this. And I think it's very important just to try to get paid up front and be extremely cautious as you're moving into this. But again, it comes into the valuing yourself first, and then other people will value you.
That confidence is so important. People can see when you're lacking that confidence. And I think when they see that, it's easy for people to swoop in and think that they can have control over your work or the situation. And yeah, I mean, just in producing your work, confidence is really, really important with things like imposter syndrome. And there's so many things that come from not having confidence. So yeah, for sure.
I have a story like that just fits perfectly to what Stephen just said. My sister is an artist as well. Her name is Pixie Code on Instagram. And she, a couple of years ago, I think 5 years or 6 years ago, she was approached by a company. And at that point, she had also just kind of started out as an artist, but she's super talented and her images are super, like, very appeal to lots of people. And she was contacted by this company. They were a clothing company and they said, hey, we just started out as a company. We're pretty small and we just want to have exclusive rights to your images. And since she didn't have a lot of experience, she was like, yeah, sure. She was very excited. And she sold her image rights for $500 per image. Ooh. And also because she believed them, because they said that they just started out as a company. And we found out 3 months later that within 3 months, they had made over $1 million in revenues with her art in these 3 months using these images, because they weren't a small company, they were actually quite big. So I think that the takeaway from that is, one thing that I would always suggest people is to, what Stephen said is super important, to have like an upfront payment. And maybe on top, if it's possible, try to negotiate also for royalties. Try to negotiate that you get a small percentage of every single sale that they make, because that way, if it really blows up and is a massive success, you will get paid accordingly. That is something super important. And then also, if you sell exclusive rights, try to also narrow it down to the niche that this company is working in. Like if they are a clothing company and their market is people who buy clothing, then say, hey, I'm going to sell you exclusive rights for the clothing niche, but all the other markets I can still sell my art to other companies, like for example for puzzles or whatever, because that way your image is not off the market after that, and you can still like work with other companies and create revenue streams that way.
I just want to add to that too, what's so vital, and in this case with what Jonas' sister went through, is just research. You have to research. When you get contacted by anyone, just research that company, do your best, do your due diligence to see, has anyone written are there any threads written about this company? Have they been bamboozling artists? Are they known for this? Because this is something that pops up and all of a sudden artists come to go, hey, I just actually got an email today, a message just before I got in here about some guy. This guy was saying, hey, have you heard of this guy? This guy hasn't paid me. He's been doing this to a bunch of artists, right? So if these artists are talking about it, it's going to be probably written somewhere. It might even been written up in the Better Business Bureau. Some people might have filed a complaint. It could have gone to that level. So that's why it's just so important to do as much research as possible, find out about what this company does, how they exist, if they've mistreated any artists. And also, I just want to throw out a resource for people out there, because again, people get nervous of contracts and how much should I charge and what does it mean and all this. Again, the research, but one of the books that I've found, which is extremely widely used, is put out by the Graphic Artists Guild called The Handbook on Pricing. And they put out a new book every year, and it has sample contracts in the back. It tells you about trademarks. It tells you about copyright. It tells you how much going rates. Maybe you're doing an album cover. How much should you charge for that? Is this a potential royalty deal? Is that something? And sometimes I'll be honest with you, royalty deals scare me because it's a way that people can try to get you just to do free art with all these big promises that this is going to turn into something and we're going to sell it and this is going to happen. If you're going that route, you want to make sure you have everything in writing and you're really protecting yourself, because you can't always check the books. This is where a company's a good friend of mine who had a huge deal with a big company, and they found out they were screwing him on the back end with all the royalty payments, because how do you really track it? So sometimes I think just you got to weigh it out and go, this with this, I mean, with Jonas' sister, I mean, that's amazing, that company was able to do that. But there are those companies who won't, and maybe where you should have been paid, say, $5,000 for the gig, for all the amount of work, all the time, effort you put into it, and the royalty at the end of the day gives you $300, right? Yeah. And it's something to be careful of too, and this is things where business side of understanding between the gross and the net, where people say, hey, I'll give you 10% of the net. And you go, oh, that sounds good, but you don't want 10% of the net. You want 10% of the gross. The gross is the full amount. So say something is $100 and you're getting 10% of the gross, you're getting $10. But if it's 10% of the net, all of a sudden they got all their business expenses, their Starbucks coffees, their this, their that, the other. That 10% net is only where it's 10% off $1. We only made $1 profit off of the $100, but we'll give you 10% off that. But these are the things artists, I feel, if you're getting into this game and you really want to take it seriously and move into this, it's just research, do your due diligence, study business things, understand contracts, negotiation. It's very important.
I wanted to, I'm sure the audience wants to write this down too, but could we get the name of that book that you mentioned again?
Yeah, it's called The Handbook on Pricing, and it's put out by the Graphic Artists Guild, and you can find it on Amazon.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic resource. And a final note on that, I wanted to say, don't be afraid to reach out to your peers or your fellow artists or the people you look up to. I think a lot of times they might feel like they're out of reach, but I know a lot of artists like you guys that are more than happy to share their experiences and help other artists who are just starting. And I hope this conversation helps dissolve some of the fear around taking action around your work. But many websites don't offer information on what it means to file a DMCA. So it's easy as an artist to feel stuck. And Lauren, I want to give you the stage here because I think maybe you can tell us a little bit about what companies and art communities can do to protect their art. And also, what is DeviantArt doing now to protect their artists?
Sure. So we recently, it's no secret copyright infringement is a serious problem. Every day artists are coming to DeviantArt and spending hours, days on a piece to share it with the world. And it's more than that. It's the lifetime of skill. You're talking about pricing yourself. It's longer than the amount of time that it's taken to create this art. It's all the background work that nobody sees. That got you to that level. So, and it's not new, unfortunately, for a long time. DeviantArt has been looking for the way to best approach the issue and how to give more protection to artists. And the really cool thing, thanks to some advances in machine learning, we finally can. I won't get into how the algorithm works. It's really complex, but our machine learning is able to, they created this state-of-the-art image recognition software that identifies new images that are visually identical to other images that already exist on DeviantArt. And when that is found, customer service representative hops in there and makes a check right now and sends a notification out to the original submitter to say, this is possibly unauthorized, it's possibly authorized. If you'd like to submit a DMCA, click here. And if not, if it's a commission, if it's an adoptable or a base, and you're totally fine with it, ignore that. But we're here to help you with that.
That's fantastic. That's great. One of the questions that has arisen because of the DA Protect, and I think this relates a little bit to the Tumblr scenario. Is it possible for DeviantArt Protect to flag artwork incorrectly?
So no offense to the machine. The machine is not always perfect. I, for one, welcome our Skynet overlords. But sure, certain things, it's interesting. The moon, I would have never thought that. Nobody owns the moon. But of course, pictures of the moon are going to be the same. It's tigers, stripes, flowers, things in nature. It's actually really interesting to think like a machine and find the types of things that are flagged. And so that's what the customer service representative is there to do, to check and make sure. And there are, like I said, with the commissions and stuff, even if it's titled commission, the customer service rep can't make the call on, is this just a bad actor who titled something commission to sneak through the system? So we always have to err on the side of caution and send that out. There are other things, there are memes, repost this if you blah, blah, blah. And they have internal processes for that sort of thing too.
That's great, yeah. And this may have been touched on, I think you may have mentioned in the beginning, but so DeviantArt handles the claims. What should the artists expect if they have to submit a claim? What does that process look like for DeviantArt?
Sure, and I love how Jonas was talking about, or we were all talking about confidence. And sometimes, I don't know how other websites do it because I don't work for them, but I know that I helped put together our form that has the DMCA, and it has a lot of fields on it, and it might seem like a large task that you might say, oh shucks, it's not even worth it, but it absolutely is. I think the things that we've talked about today underline how worth it is on behalf of the justice of the universe, the other artists who backed everybody up when it was going viral. And unfortunately or fortunately, the amount of homework, it is a legal filing. It is, you put your address on there, you put, there's phone numbers and such. But it's because it is legal, and that is how we are able to take action on that. So yeah, it comes in as a ticket, and the customer service just does the due diligence and takes down and can reach back out to the person if there was anything left out that they need to look at. But yeah, they search every corner.
I was very excited when I heard about DeviantArt Protect, and I've had a little bit of experience with it on my end, and I gush about it all the time on my live stream. But I mentioned this I mentioned this a few days ago, but it kind of feels like a virtual hand-holding through the process, working with DeviantArt for that. And definitely it gives me confidence if I ever have to go through that process to know that, DeviantArt is in a way there for me. And it also goes to show that they're looking out for their users as well. which is super important to us.
I liked that Jonas mentioned that a fan kept reaching out about Madonna. And that's what we're here to be. We're here to be. You can't be everywhere at once. Your eyes can't be everywhere. And something that we wanted to make sure, DMCA has existed, will always exist on DeviantArt. Nothing has changed with regards to policy, but this is just helping it get in front of you easier.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 weeks ago or something, I received an email by someone from DeviantArt, and they told me that my art was found on a NFT platform. So I was wondering, does your AI, does it only search on DeviantArt itself, or does it search also on other platforms?
We have just recently expanded into the NFT realm, which again, I can't get too much into because I don't understand how exactly it works. But basically, when something is on the blockchain, we are able to use that same algorithm to see, is the submission date on DeviantArt before it appeared on the blockchain? And if so, I believe for that was manual. And so I believe our staff was contacting you based on the original submission. And I assume you maybe replied and said, yeah, that's me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good looking out, bro.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty exciting to have that system in place on your side, because it really helps to find all these things. I haven't replied it to the email yet. I still have to, because I was on vacation, but I'm gonna get to it soon.
A little bit of inside baseball. When it first launched, when DeviantArt Protect, I had my ears to the ground on social looking for, are people talking about this? Who is getting the notifications? And the first ones that came in were, this is me, it's legit, but what a cool thing. I'm so happy. And so we all felt really uplifted by that.
With something like this in place, artists get to focus more on their creative pursuits and less on worrying about their art being stolen. And I think that's what we all hope for. So that's fantastic. I wanted to ask if there was anything that you guys would like to share with our artists out there who are nervous to start sharing their art online. Any advice there, like a final thought?
I would just say, just don't be afraid. You can't live under a rock in the shell. You have to just put your stuff out there. Because I've always heard artists, I'm afraid to put it out there in case someone steals it. We just have no control over that. And I think when you understand that you're doing your best, that you've maybe heard some things today and go, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to, whether it's watermarking, reduce the DPI as I'm putting it out there, whatever it may be. Just you can't do that, otherwise you're never going to get seen and you're never going to get noticed. And that's really why we put our work out there, is to start to get seen and noticed, and hope that transcends into paying jobs and something else. And that would be my biggest advice. Is Nike said it, just do it. Just do it. There's these other things that are going, don't worry about that. If it comes to that, you cross that bridge when you get to it, but have fun, enjoy the process, and just be the artist that you want to be.
Yeah. Don't let that fear hide your passion from the world, because there's somebody out there who needs to see it.
I just wanted to pop in with cheerleading about the DeviantArt features. As many longtime Deviants will know, we have watermarks that you can just check. It will add the DeviantArt logo. It will add your URL to the bottom. It has the copyright symbol on it. We have the drop down where you can choose the resolution, and just coming out with more things every day. Right now we have premium content where you can have a preview image and a buy this button to unlock more. And then now we got DeviantArt Protect for you.
And there's lots more great things coming. Excited for what's to come. Well, I'm very grateful for all of you being here today and sharing your experience with us. I know you're all very busy people. Before I go, I want to make sure that our audience knows how to find you. So, Stephen, we can start with you. Feel free to share your social media handles, any place we might find more resources from you or more about you.
Sure. Steven Silver 7 is my Instagram. I had to do 7 because someone else stole my name. Someone else has my name. That's crazy. No, so Steven Silver 7 on Instagram, and also where I spend most of my time now is with my community that I built through my online art school, which is silverdrawingacademy.com.
And Jonas, how can we find you? And if you had any
Yeah,
final
so
thoughts as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe the final thoughts first. I totally agree with what Stephen said. I have so many people, like especially when the whole Aaron Carter thing happened, so many people wrote to me like, oh, that's my nightmare. Like if that ever happened to me, I would crawl under a rock. I would hide myself from the world, and I would not post art anymore because I'd be so scared of having it stolen. But I think it's like part of that job of an artist in our social and digital age. It's like part of the risk of the job. Every job has some risks to it, and that's just one of these risks. But there's so many tools that we have nowadays to handle these issues. And one thing that I forgot to mention as well is that you can also register your art with the US Copyright Office, which gives you another layer of protection. It costs like, I think $50 or something if you register with them. But if you do that and someone steals your artwork, especially if it's a bigger company or a celebrity or something, you have very, very good protection, and you have a proof in your hand. You have a certificate which you can show and say, hey, that's my artwork. And it's very easy to win any lawsuit in that case. So just make use of all these tools, DMCA takedown notices, whatever, and it's gonna be fine. And yeah, my social media handle is Jojo's Art, which is JOJOESART. I'm on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok now as well. And yeah, would be awesome if you gave me a follow there.
And Lauren, where can we find you?
I am the Laurenverse on DeviantArt, Twitter, Instagram, and you can follow for dank memes and pictures of my cat. But I mean, honestly, send me a note on DeviantArt if there's any questions I can help. I love hearing from the community and helping them out. So please do. I invite you.
Great. Thank you guys so much. If anyone wants to see more content from me, you can watch me paint live on twitch.tv/SilasA every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Or you can find links to all my content on silasa.com. And cheers to sharing more art. I think this is going to give people the confidence that they need to take that leap and finally share if they've been waiting. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your experience here at Lightbox, and I hope you enjoyed our panel today. Thanks so much for having all of us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.